What's up everybody, this is Master Ian Gamer, and with the Summer Games event starting very soon, there have been mixed reactions to the announcement of Lucioball's return. Some people are super excited to be able to play it once again, especially with the new Busan map, but others are feeling a bit tired of the game mode now that we've had it for 3 years. So for those of you who might fall into the latter category and are maybe looking for something a bit more new and fresh this time around, I do still think there's a good chance for us to get a brand new game mode in addition to Lucioball returning this year. But what exactly could this new game mode be? Well, there's quite a few possibilities, especially since it is the Summer Games after all. So in this video, I wanted to run through some of the most popular ideas for new game modes we could be getting to hopefully add just a little bit of more fresh variety to this year's event. Real quick though, if you do end up enjoying this video, then be sure to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe for future content. Anyways, without further ado, let's jump right on in. So the number one game mode theme that I think most people have been considering within the past couple months utilizes our most recent new hero edition, which is Hammond or Wrecking Ball. Given that he is literally a ball, there seems to be so much potential when it comes to various unique game modes utilizing him. While I could honestly go all day listing possibilities for him, I'm going to include 2 of them in this video, and the first is Hammond Racing. Now this is probably the single most talked about Hammond game mode I've seen recently, and well, it's pretty self-explanatory. A number of different players, all playing as Wrecking Ball, have to compete against each other in order to win a race. Considering the semantics of it, I expect it would probably be either 6-player or 4-player free-for-all style, as teams in a racing game like this, well, don't always really work. The grapple hook would, of course, be incredibly crucial for getting some nice speed boosts, and depending on the track layout, you might even have to cross some gaps using it, or maybe there would even be shortcut opportunities. But beyond just utilizing Wrecking Ball's standard abilities, they could also include something along the lines of power-ups. Perhaps these would be speed boosts of some kind, traps you could deploy to slow down your enemies, or honestly, who knows? Basically take anything out of any of the Mario Kart games, and I'm sure Blizzard could come up with an Overwatch equivalent to put in Hammond Racing. I think the amount of replayability for a mode like this will entirely depend on how well it's actually developed. I could see it being quite gimmicky and only being good for maybe a few rounds before you get bored of it, or if it's designed well enough, honestly I could see it being played indefinitely. Either way, it's an awesome idea that I would love to see implemented, and I'm sure many other people would too. Now the other main Hammond game mode idea is bowling. This would be similar to racing, where you would probably have a number of players all playing as Wrecking Ball, but rather than trying to outrun your opponents, the goal is to knock down bowling pins. And again, there is quite a bit of variety that we could see even within a bowling game. In this case, I could see teams actually potentially working, where you have a group of maybe 3 players on each team trying to score more points than each other. I also think it would be the most fun if everybody was on the same lane, so to say, where everyone had these same pins and thus they had to compete to try to knock down each individual pin instead of simply trying to outscore their opponents. Now as for what exactly these pins would be, well, who knows? I think training bots could honestly work pretty well if you just give them like 1 HP and then they just die instantly. Overall, I think it would be a bit more messy to design the scoring system and the actual layout of a game mode like this as opposed to a Hammond Racing, but nonetheless, it would be a really fun and unique idea that I would love to see in game. Now, I will say though, the largest caveat I see for either Hammond Racing or Hammond Bowling is that they would almost certainly require a brand new map. Racing would of course require a long track-like map, which, unless they decided to somehow partition a large existing map, I'm not sure exactly how well that would work. I mean, I guess you could argue they could take a map like Junkertown and just have you race from the very beginning to the very end, but unless they put up like obstructions to prevent you from taking certain shortcuts and other routes, I feel like it could be, I don't know, kind of messy. Given that it has already been confirmed that we're getting the new Busan Lucioball arena, I really don't think Blizzard is going to have developed another brand new map just for some new Hammond game mode. I could be wrong, and I certainly wouldn't be disappointed if that's the case. Moving on now to some non-Hammond specific possible game modes, we have something along the lines of an asymmetric boss fight mode. The best comparison to make for this would be the Yeti Hunt mode from the Winter Wonderland event. I've always been a fan of asymmetric game modes as they make for some interesting and diverse gameplay. So I would definitely be interested in seeing some kind of new 1v4 mode introduced with this year's event. Now, as for what exactly would take place in this mode and who would be the boss and who would be the team trying to fight them, well, I don't really know. None of the skins we have so far for the Summer Games event stand out as being boss-like, so unfortunately I can't really see any potential there, at least not for the time being. For those of you who saw my skin predictions video, one of the skins I suggested we could get would be a Poseidon skin for Reinhardt. Poseidon is a rather intimidating fellow, so I suppose he could possibly be a boss if Reinhardt were to end up getting a skin like this. However, we did already just get a teaser showing off Reinhardt's new skin for this year's Summer Games event, so unless he somehow manages to get 2 unique legendary skins in one event, I don't think this is going to be happening, at least not this year. If you haven't seen that Reinhardt skin teaser, I'll have a card linking to it on screen. And admittedly, the Summer Games might not be the best event for a mode like this. I think Halloween Terror probably would have a bit more potential in that category, but nonetheless, yet another idea that I think could work really well if Blizzard did it right. Now, moving back to a more sports-oriented game mode, one that I've seen people talk about and I think actually does have reasonable potential is Doomfist Volleyball. We of course already have soccer or football in the form of Lucioball, and for what it's worth, it's actually a pretty well-made game mode. So who's to say they don't take a different hero with different abilities and make a new sports-themed mode based around that? Given that basically every single one of Doomfist's abilities involves him punching or throwing his body around, he of course would be perfect for volleyball. Just like in Lucioball, Lucio has some slight tweaks to how his abilities work, I could see the same being done for Doomfist here. Rocket Punch would be the base way of hitting the ball, and perhaps they would disable the movement it gives Doomfist so he doesn't go flying in some certain direction every time you try to bounce it. Rising Uppercut would be used to gain height and potentially spike the ball over the net, and Seismic Slam could perhaps be the move you use to quickly get from one point of the court to the other if you're trying to dive in to bounce the ball across. As for his ultimate Meteor Strike, I'm not really sure how that would play into it. Just like Lucioball again, they might have to drastically change that ability just so it's actually kind of useful, but they honestly could probably come up with something pretty clever. In terms of team sizes, I would expect it to be a 2v2, but they could also make it a 3v3. I don't think we'd see it get much bigger than that, but hey, who knows, maybe they'll go for a full 6-on-6 Doomfist Volleyball. As for what map it would take place on, well, I don't think it would be nearly as big of an issue as I said with the Hammond modes. Honestly, you could take the existing Lucioball arenas and just modify them by adding a net, and that should be good enough. So honestly, of all the ideas I'm going to talk about in this video, I do consider Doomfist Volleyball to probably be one of the more likely possibilities. Maybe it won't show up this year, but we could get it next year or maybe even the year after that. I'm optimistic and I've still got my fingers crossed. Now additionally, going back to Hammond, I've seen a lot of people talk about having a mode like either Doomfist Volleyball or even just the already existing Lucioball, but on top of that, adding in Wrecking Ball as the ball. Some people say they should just reskin the ball to make it look like Wrecking Ball, but others say that it should actually be a player playing as Wrecking Ball himself while getting booped around. And while I think that's certainly an interesting and novel idea, I don't think it would actually be very fun. Unless Wrecking Ball was actively trying to work with or against one or both of the teams, whoever was playing him would essentially just be a spectator, which, you know, might be interesting for a little bit, but I think wouldn't be very appealing to most people. I do think it would be quite funny though if you had a situation where there were 6 Lucios against 1 Wrecking Ball, and basically the Lucios are just trying to knock Wrecking Ball into a net, and Wrecking Ball is just trying with all his might to not have that happen. In fact, this could also fit into the asymmetric boss fight mode that I mentioned earlier, where you have a team of multiple players against just one individual. I guess I could see some really interesting gameplay come out of a mode like that, but for right now, I'm not really sure it's something we're we're going to end up seeing. To some degree, it'd almost feel like a mockery of sports in general to have something like that, which definitely doesn't seem to be the tone that Blizzard is trying to go with for the summer games. I don't know, maybe it could work, and if it does, I would be fascinated to see how Blizzard ends up designing it. We could also see something along the lines of Lucioball in a different form, like the Street Lucioball concept that Puppet Squid talked about on his channel. In essence, this takes the already existing Lucioball format and makes it a little less formal by placing it on control point maps where there's more opportunities to wall ride and navigate in different ways. I recommend you check out Puppet Squid's video talking about this idea if you haven't already, so I'll have it linked in the cards on screen. But these have just been a few of my favorite ideas that I've seen people talk about and also think maybe in one way or another could actually end up being in game one day. But now I want you guys to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think any of these game modes I mentioned have potential, or do you have your own ideas that you think would be even better? Let me know down in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video and share it with a friend if you really liked it. Subscribe, follow me on Twitter, and turn on notifications to both help out my channel and keep up with all my future Overwatch content. This is Master Ian Gamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.